That's right. Good for you. What else? You guys can close your laptops. You won't need them. Unless you're taking notes. What else? Tell me something good.
Pretty terrible, actually.
Terrible?
Yeah.
Why?
Meeting for 8 hours Saturday.
You what?
I was in a meeting for 8 hours, like just looking at presentations.
You were at an 8-hour meeting on Saturday.
Yes.
Doing what for what?
First I presented, I was like second one to present, but then I had to be the whole day letting other people present.
For what? What were you presenting?
For control engineering, like a junior student paper contest.
Troy, he wants to make money one day. We're going to talk about that today.
Job,
Huh?
that's if I get a job.
Yeah. I will be clean energy in 2 years, so you're screwed. But Roger. Okay. Cool. Good stuff. Anybody else? Anything good going on in your life? Anything good?
I got a Coke.
Huh?
I got a Coke.
You got a Coke? Good. Way to find a positive in something small.
I still
Okay?
have my contract.
Still have your contract? That's good. Yeah, wait till the medical gets a hold of you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, cool. Glad to hear it. Focus on good things, man. Celebrate good things. Enjoy good things. Today is one of my favorite days. If you had me before, some of this will probably sound a little familiar if you actually paid attention. If you didn't at all, then you'll be like, oh, this is the first time I've ever heard this, right? We're a little lecture heavy today, but just bear with me, okay? Sometimes we do that, but still engage, still ask you questions, because we've got a lot of info to go through as you guys were commenting on what the heck we're going to do here with why we're all stupid, right? So a little lecture heavy, bear with me. Next week won't be, okay? If I do this to you one week, the next week will not be. And we're going to get into the book and all that stuff, which will actually be really exciting, I think, and I hope, okay? So what we're going to talk about today. Instinctive, any psych majors? Okay, cool. Then some of this you should have heard, and if not, then your professors have failed you altogether. And I'm a lot better than that, okay? So we're going to go through some things today. This is how your brain works. Everybody's brain works like this. You have your instinctive system, all right? You know that fire is hot and ice is cold, and if you're at an Aggie football game, you can pick your mother's face out of a crowd, okay? But what's harder is, what's today's date?
It's February 2nd,
Good,
2021.
good job, Marine. Okay, what's 15 times 15? Anybody? Dude, engineers, my man. Okay, good stuff, all right? Or should you invest in GameStop?
No, not anymore.
Okay, if you guys haven't been paying attention to that, just pay attention. Even if you have no interest in trading yourself, just watch this stuff. It's fascinating, okay? So that's associative. It's a little bit harder. I can see, Alec, right?
Yes.
I can see his brain working on 15 times 15. Okay, he had it. Just took him a second, okay? A little quicker than if he sees ice and he knows it's cold, right? That's your associative system. Here's the problem. Our brains are really lazy, right? We try to take the shortcut whenever possible. We make associative decisions that are a little bit harder to make with our instinctive system. We will make decisions quickly. Not a good thing most of the time, all right? We're going to talk about biases today, a whole bunch of biases. If you don't think you're biased, we're going to go through all these today. And if you don't acknowledge that you have at least some of these, then you have no idea what you're really like. Okay? Some of you will be like, oh, I don't do that at all. That's fine. You probably don't. Some of you can be like, oh, yeah, I do that every day. Okay? A cognitive bias refers to a systemic error in the thinking process. Such biases are often connected to a heuristic, which is just a shortcut. Right? A heuristic allows one to make an inference without extensive deliberation, reflective judgment, given they are essentially schemes for such solutions. What does that mean? I mean, I just told you, but put it in your own words. Anybody? What do we think that means? Yep.
Make the mental shortcut on making decisions so you're biased because say you like this thing a little more, so your brain's going to instantly go there.
Bingo.
Not just a better choice.
Yes, absolutely correct. Okay, good. Humans are irrational. We make decisions on emotions, not objective data. If you don't believe me, turn on the news. Watch it for 5 minutes. And if you're conservative, put on CNN. If you're liberal, put on Fox News. You just start shaking, screaming at the TV. About 2 minutes in, right? Okay? Which is fine. We'll talk more about that. Is there statistical bias? There can be, right? Is anybody taking stats? Okay. Can you manipulate statistics?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. There's a saying, something like, it's taking facts and manipulating it to say what you want, or something like that. Okay. Yeah, you can manipulate statistics. Sure. Fair enough. So that's in there. Because people are involved, if we don't eliminate, some of those variables when you're looking at stats, right, you get a whole picture. If you pick some out, you're like, oh, I don't like that one, let's take it out. Then it's people that just influenced it, okay? All right, anchoring bias. Who wants to make 100 grand right out of school? Good for you, okay? My petty, he might be the only one, okay? Some of you engineers, maybe, okay? What the first piece of data we were given is sometimes set the baseline for an entire discussion. If you think you're going to get paid 100, a company wants to hire you, right? Believe it or not, okay? They're ready to hire you, and you're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to make 100 grand. And they give you the offer, and it says 50K. Are you going to get to 100 in that negotiating process?
You can negotiate for 60 or 65.
Bingo. You are not getting to 100 if it starts at 50. Okay, you're just not, all right? They won't hire you, okay? The first number is what sets the range. Our judicial system, judges, are actually pretty good at being objective, all right? When you get to juries, it's a little harder, but our judicial system, the judges are pretty good, okay? You're gonna love this. They're pretty good at making rational decisions and looking at things fairly, okay? But they took a bunch of cases where criminals had already been convicted. They were done, they did the crime, been convicted. All the judges had to do was assign the sentence, okay, how long they're going to jail, okay? Before they made the decision, they were given a dice, like a 12-sided die, so 1 through 12, and it was loaded. So when they would roll the dice, it would usually come up like 10, 11, 12, right? Every time they would look at the case, say, okay, somebody did this, typically they're assigned about this much jail time. But before they did the sentence, they rolled the dice and came up a high number. What happened to those sentences? They went up. Why?
Because they saw the dice, or had it in their mind how it was, they saw the dice, like, oh, we're going to go with that.
They saw a higher number and assigned a higher penalty than they normally would have. The dice had no bearing on what happened. That's how they were influenced. It's jacked up, right? Don't do any crimes. Okay. But that's what happens, right? Automation bias, okay? We use systems to eliminate human error. Anybody want to be a pilot? No, I usually have one or two. A couple years ago, there was a commercial flight, I think it was going to Minneapolis, and they overshot it by an hour and a half. It was almost 2 hours, I think. They were up there with autopilot on, just yakking away. That's bad news. You're talking about fuel, okay? You're talking about connecting flights, all this stuff. Everybody apparently was just sitting in the back. I don't know why no one knew they weren't landing when they were supposed to, right? But they overflew it by an hour and a half, which means they had to come back, which made them like 3 hours late, okay? Those pilots got fired, 100%. There was a company that thought they could set up an automated trading system, so trading stocks for them online, and within like a couple hours, it lost them $500 million. The company almost went bankrupt, all right? Tesla, when you get on the highway, you can hit a button and the car will drive for you, right? Pretty badass. You know why we need self-driving cars? You know why that's happening?
People suck at driving.
Why? What are you doing when you're driving? Right? It's horrible. I saw a girl driving down Texas take a selfie. What's that?
I almost got hit yesterday because a dude pulled out too wide and he went into the middle lane of traffic where I was, and I had to skirt around him.
Solid. I saw a girl in the truck take a selfie driving down Texas Avenue. Okay? I almost lost my mind. All right? We'll talk about driving here in a little bit. But a guy was driving his Tesla going down the freeway. He fell asleep. Sued Tesla. Okay? Because he said the new car smell put him to sleep. Fortunately, the judge was like, no, you're an idiot. All right? That's actually good at that. Okay? So if we rely on that too much, it can lead to problems. Okay, we're not quite there. We're getting close though, which is exciting. All right? Availability heuristic. We give more credence to information we already know, even if that awareness is in our subconscious. This is particularly true if it's dramatic or emotionally charged. Politics. Right? You hear something that you already agree with, and you're like, yep, got it. If it's the opposite, you're like, no way. You don't believe it. Right? And it happens everywhere. But this is exactly what the news does. Again, it's like, this is why you can't get unbiased news. Right? Because they're feeding you either what you want to hear or what will get a reaction out of you. All of them. About the most unbiased news source left is NPR, believe it or not. Okay? You can read all about it. But it's really, really hard to get unbiased news. But that's why. They play on that. They know they can get a reaction out of you. This is why it's always like drama and stuff like that. That's what gets clicks. That's what gets views, unfortunately. Right? Bandwagon effect. We're more likely to believe something to be true if others around us already believe it. Conversely, we believe it not to be true if others don't believe it. If you're with a group of people and somebody says something and none of you agree, you're more likely to just follow that group of people. You'd be like, yeah, I don't believe you. Right? And it's true. They'll take true information. But if you don't believe it, your brain won't take it in. Okay? It's pretty entertaining. Business majors? You guys heard groupthink? What is it?
That's pretty much what it is. Like everybody that's in a collective will like spout ideas off or have a problem.
Yep.
And once one solution is found, everybody jumps on board and kind of forgets their individual ideas.
Bingo. Not only that, once you get the solution, you're just moving forward with it. William.
Well, it's thinking the way that maintains group harmony.
Group what?
Group harmony,
Yeah.
not creating conflict within the group.
Yeah, nobody wants to rock the boat, right? We think, okay, we got an idea, we got a plan. This is a problem. You guys are about to be new people in your companies, new people in the organizations you work with, okay? And you're gonna hear people who've been around longer, they're older than you, and you're gonna be like, yep, we'll just go along with that. Did I tell you a story about my buddy who was an intern and told they were building the road wrong? So buddy's an intern, junior in college, as an engineer, and it's equivalent of like TxDOT. They're building the road, and the goal was to build it safer, right? They were taking a road that was kind of curvy and windy, and they were making it safer. And he's an intern, he's on the job, and he starts doing the math, and he's like, hey, you're building the road wrong, right? There are millions of dollars in this project, tons of construction, it's already going, okay? And he goes to his boss, and he's like, hey, I just want you to know, you're building the road wrong. And he's like, dumb intern, you don't know anything, you haven't even graduated yet, right? He's like, the math doesn't lie, okay? Fortunately, he goes to that guy's boss and says, hey, you're building the road wrong. And the guy looks at it and he's like, oh shit, you're 100% correct. So not only that gives him a little credence, right? To stand up and say, hey, look at this. Also got the in-between boss in trouble, right? It's like, why did you not listen to him? Okay? So stand up for yourself when you're new. It makes it hard for organizations to question their own assumptions. You start moving forward on a plan and you're going to sit there and be like, wait a minute, what if we're building the road wrong? Right? Be able to bring that up. It's hard to do. It often leads to irrational decisions. Again, once you have a plan, you start moving forward, and it may be a shitty plan. Okay? Base rate fallacy. Anybody buy stuff on Amazon? Okay, or Walmart or wherever, okay? And it's got the reviews. There'll be 3,000 reviews. And you'll look at the one that's a negative. There's 3,000 5-star reviews, right? 4.5. It's got good reviews. You'll find one bad review, and it'll convince you not to buy it. Has anybody done that? Yeah. No, you're just going with it. So 3,000 people are telling you it's good. You found the one that says it's not, and you're like, oh, good. I don't need this. This is a piece of crap. Okay?
5 to 1 positive to negative. So if I have 5 positive for every 1 negative, I take that as trustworthy.
Nice. Okay, figuring out your averages. All right. Basically, you're finding the data that tells you what you want it to say, and that's what you're going with, instead of looking at all the other data. Okay. Chrysler was building a car years ago, and there's a metric that measures how often the car has to be repaired, right? And so they started fixing the little things so it had to be repaired slightly less often. So over time, they were making a slightly less shitty car, but they were still making a shitty car. All right. So they were looking at the data wrong. Clustering illusion. This is when you see an animal in clouds, right? Or you see, a couple years ago, we took pictures on Mars. And they're like, there's a face. No, there's not. They're rocks. Okay? But we're like, oh, there's a face on Mars. No, there isn't. We're idiots. Okay? Anybody want to be an entrepreneur? Start their own business? Okay? Yeah. This is a little bit dangerous for you. This is a little bit dangerous because you will look at patterns of what's happened with other businesses and think you have it figured out. Okay? So just be aware of that. We tend to look for patterns. We look for patterns in the stock market. It's really, really hard to do because they're usually not there. This one, just about all of you do, all of us, everybody, okay? The unconscious act of referencing only the perspectives that fuel our pre-existing views, while at the same time ignoring or dismissing opinions, no matter how valid, that threaten our view. You ever been in an argument with somebody and they make a really good point? What do? Does it piss you off? Yeah, right? Instead of stopping and saying, damn it, that's a really good perspective. I never thought of it that way. Do you ever do that? No, right? You're like, idiot. Okay? And then at 3 in the morning, you're like, damn it. Right? They made a good point. If you're honestly in an argument with somebody, like a heated argument, you get real dumb. Like your brain devolves to like reptile status.
Yeah,
which is
your
why
prefrontal cortex shut down and your lizard brain take over.
100%, which is what, listen, if you're dating somebody, don't say the thing. You're going to get in an argument, and it's going to get bad, and you're going to start saying meaner and meaner things. You're going to say something really rude, okay? Don't do that, okay? Because then later you're like, I'm sorry I said the thing, okay? You sound like an idiot, okay? We all do it. Just be aware of it. It's hard, okay? It's hard to stop that. This is 100% true of political views and opinions, right? It is almost impossible for us to just normally change your mind, okay? Especially on text. You ever been debating something over text? Have you ever once stopped and said, good point? No, you just send the counter argument, right? No one just like acknowledges, maybe that's a good point, okay? By the way, I live in a split household politically. It gets interesting, okay? A lot of cadets will actually ask me after class, like, hey, my boyfriend and girlfriend, they're opposite political party. What do I do? It's okay. It's okay. Don't, listen, some of you guys cannot afford to cut off half the dating pool. Right? This is also why new companies can succeed at beating well-established companies. The new company all the time can come up and challenge them and do something different to make them better. Fortune 100 companies, you know the average lifespan of staying in the Fortune 100? We have a guess?
5 years.
About 30, actually. Right? If you're Fortune 100, it's about 30. Right? But you'll get knocked off. Happens all the time. Right? It's really hard to stay on top. I had a friend that worked at Johnson & Johnson. All he ever wanted to do was work in pharmaceuticals right out of school. Okay? Worked for Johnson & Johnson, this great company. It's 200 years old, right? They've done all this awesome, innovative stuff. He hated it because no one was willing to do anything innovative anymore. Everybody just want to make their $200,000 a year and not rock the boat at all. Okay? Sounds okay, right? He hated it because he was like, we're not trying anymore. We're not the same company we used to be. Right now, you guys don't believe me, but that'll happen to you. Like 5-10 years, you'll be like, oh, I hate my job, and you're going to be making good money. That's okay. You'll get through it. Curse of knowledge. Once you truly understand a piece of information, that it's now obvious to you, okay? It might be easy to forget that there was ever a time you didn't know it, so you assume everybody knows it, right? Like when you're studying, okay, and you finally get it down, you're trying to explain it to somebody, and you're like, how do you not understand this, right? Or you're on the opposite end of that. Happens too, okay? Okay, my engineers, where's my engineers? Cool, and my business people? Yeah, okay, this is what happens to you morons because you can't work together, right? Engineers and marketing. When plasma and LCD TVs came out about the same time, which one's better? Anybody know?
I know because last year. But
Huh?
I know because last year he's the same.
Okay, good. Yeah, we brought this up, right? Okay. Plasma's a better TV, right? You're the only one that remembers so far. Hoover still doesn't know what we're talking about. Plasma is a better picture. It's a better TV. LCD won the battle, okay? Because what does it like when you watch TV or a movie at home? You turn on all the lights like this? No, it's darker usually, right? You want a good picture? Okay. When you go into Best Buy or Walmart or somewhere to buy it, what's it like in the store?
It's bright.
Super bright, right? LCDs looked better in brighter light. So the engineers at Plasma knew they had a better TV. The marketing people with LCD knew they could win the battle. Right? So communicate. This is hindsight bias is similar. Okay? Have you ever had something happen? You'd be like, oh, I totally should have seen it coming. No, you didn't know it was going to happen, right? That's hindsight bias. You think you totally should have seen it coming, and you didn't. Okay? Same thing.
Person knowledge becomes really prevalent when you try to teach somebody new, especially where you're trying to teach like your little brother how to play a game that you've been playing for years.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so take step, no, wrong direction, go that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
That's
Or
wrong.
teaching anybody anything, like playing guitar, right? Okay, yeah, have you taught anybody or anything? You're still learning a little bit, right? Yeah, right. You're like, why are your hands so terrible? Okay, because you're like, this one's doing this one's doing this. It's hard, okay? And after you get it down, you can't even fathom how somebody can't play a simple G chord, right? You're like, dude, it's really easy. Framing effect. Anybody play baseball or softball growing up? Okay. Catcher? Okay, cool. Perfect. What happens when the pitcher throws a ball and you catch it? What are you trying to do? Frame it, right? You're trying to make it look like a strike. Okay? That's exactly what this is. We tend to draw different conclusions from the same information. This is why I love our discussion posts. You guys will read something and have totally different opinions on it. Okay? And then that's why I make you read them, because you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh my God, it's like we learned something from each other. And then a single tear of joy rolls down my cheek. Advertisers and political spin doctors will absolutely use this to their advantage. Okay? Again, you're going to be a new person at your company, right? And your organization you work at. And they're going to say, Jukes, go look at this organization we're thinking about buying, right? And find out all the information and come present it to us. If you present all the positives, they're more likely to buy that company. If you just present it as here's all the negatives, they are less likely to buy it. Okay? Xerox. Anybody know Xerox, the company? What do they make? What do they do? Printers. Yep, printers and copiers. Okay? They made almost everything for the modern computer. And they didn't think of themselves as a computer company. They could have been Apple, right? Or IBM or Microsoft or all of them. Right? But they were like, no, we're just a printer company, a copier company. Not so great, right? Questions on that? Questions on any of these? Please bring it up, or if you don't believe them. Any other degenerate gamblers like myself? Okay, cool. Right? Future probabilities are altered by past events. Who likes football? Okay, cool. Anybody watch College Game Day? Right? Especially when they're here, okay? When they could go places. All right, time about A&M playing LSU. And they're like, LSU has beaten A&M 6 out of the last 7 times, or whatever, right? Does that have any bearing on today's game? No, it doesn't. Yeah, maybe if there's a few players, but that game that was played 7 years ago, there's not a single player from either of those teams that are still on the team. It has no impact on today's game, yet they will bring it up all the time. I will prove it, okay? Roulette table. Does anybody not know what roulette is? It's the game where they spin the ball around, you bet on black or red. Sometimes it lands on green and you lose all your money. Oh man, okay, cool. All right. No joke at a casino. This thing kept hitting, it was like red 16, okay? So if you win, it paid 32 to 1 or something like that if you get one number. How many numbers? Okay? So it hits red 16. Okay, spin it again, it hits red 16 again. Spin it again, red 16 again. Happens like 8 times in a row, which is pretty unprecedented. How was everyone betting when that was happening? No. Everything else. Why?
Because it's got to be something else.
No way it happens again. Yeah, it just did. It's the same probability, really. It's the exact same probability, okay? But everyone's like, no, it's going to hit something else. They were betting black, betting black. No, it hit like 8 times in a row. I think it was in Monaco. You can look it up. Flipping a coin, right? You flip a coin, it's heads or tails, right? You ever flipped a coin and been shocked? Heads? Holy shit. Heads? You're kidding me. Never saw that coming. Okay? Right, it's 50-50. Actually, if a person does it, it's 51-49 because you'll influence it. Like say if you call heads and I like you and I see it hit, I might flip it over, or whatever, catch it and flip it over. If I don't like you and I see it, I might, flip it over again. Okay? If a robot does it, machine does it, it's 50-50. All right? This is why gender reveals for babies is the dumbest thing ever. Okay? It's a boy or a girl. If you have a lizard, I will be impressed. Okay? But it's one or the other. We're not really going to be shocked. Okay? Anyway.
Well, that's an unpopular opinion in 2021. So
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. Okay, but now there's 25 genders. So I guess we can throw that one out. Okay. So some journalists said, I think we can take blindfolded monkeys and invest in the stock market and do as well as the professionals. Okay? The journalists are like, let's do this as an experiment. Well, it's really hard to actually get approval to blindfold monkeys and have them throw darts at the stock market, right? So they use themselves. They blindfold themselves. They put up the newspaper. If you guys have ever seen it, the newspaper actually prints all the stocks and everything. That's how people used to get that information. And they put them up on a board and they threw darts and invested in those stocks. How did they do compared to the professionals? About the same. You learned something. Nice. Only took me 2 semesters. Okay. They did about the same as the professionals. Okay, which is pretty nuts. Because if you can't really predict it, you don't know what's going to happen. Loss aversion. We did the quizzes, right? First day. And I asked you if you would take $300 or $1,500. I actually changed it for the second class. I switched it to $500. And I got 2 people to say yes on that. So it was literally the difference in the money was influencing you, which is fine. Okay? But given a choice, we would rather avoid a loss than reap a reward. You may know what Polaroid is? What did Polaroid primarily make?
cameras,
What goes in the cameras? Old ones. Film. Most of their money came from film for a long time. They made cameras, but most of their money came from film. And when everything started going digital, they were making digital cameras, but they didn't want to give up. They could have been one of the first ones that said digital camera, way of the future. But over 60% of the revenue came from film. So they didn't want to. Has anybody seen film? You ever seen a film canister? Nice. It's like an antique to you guys, okay? That's where people used to keep their drugs. People had film canisters. They were like little tiny things. That's all you're going to remember today, right? Why did Blockbuster Video die?
because Netflix made.
They could have bought Netflix twice. Yep. First time, Netflix was new. When Netflix came out, they knew where things were going, but they were smart enough to realize the bandwidth and everything wasn't good enough. Not all your TVs had apps. Hold on, don't lose your question. Not all your TVs had apps, right? It wasn't that simple. But they knew they would go digital, so they mailed DVDs. Does anybody not know they mailed DVDs? Okay, some people don't believe me. They're like, no, they don't. I'm like, yeah, that's how they started. You can still do that. And actually, the new movie selection, way better, okay? They mailed DVDs, but they were like, the bandwidth isn't there. It's not as common. We'll get there. They go to Blockbuster, and they say, we need your stores for now, but if we go together, we'll take you digital, because that's where everything's going. Could have bought them for like $10 million, okay? Blockbuster said no. Netflix comes back a year or 2 later, valuation's going up. They said, you can buy us for $50 million. Blockbuster said no, okay? Do you know why? What, yes?
Because they thought they'd still be fine with the old way. People want to come in the store and look for movies.
That's part of it, but that's not the main reason. That's what most people kind of know and think. Yes, sir?
Because they didn't want to take on like a $10 million loss and Netflix didn't turn up any.
No, they had the money. They really had plenty of money. It wasn't a big investment for them. Do you know where most of Blockbuster's money came from? Anybody been to one? Like, God, you're on fire, man. You do remember stuff. Late fees. If you didn't return the movie in time, you got a late fee, and it was by the day. Over 65% of Blockbuster's revenue was late fees. And they thought, if we do that, we'll miss out on our late fees. Which is stupid, because they're gone. And I don't. Netflix is worth how many billions of dollars, right? So, good call. The last Blockbuster, I think it's still open. It might have closed. It's in Oregon. And I was reading about it because somebody needed to film a movie. It was like set in the 80s or 90s, and they went to that store and filmed it in front of it because it's the only Blockbuster still standing. Negativity bias. How many of you can think of a time you did something stupid? Pretty easily, right? No, you're good? Oh, okay. Some of you are like, no, I'm awesome. Okay. How many of you can think of a time when something good happened, something positive? Takes a minute, though. Even this morning, right? I know my man drinking his Coke. Okay. We recall unpleasant memories way more vividly than positive ones. Okay. Now, that can help you from making mistakes, which is a good thing, not repeating something. All right. But you undervalue good experiences. Rarely do you like enjoy the moment. My gamblers, right? You can think of the times you lost way easier than you think of the times you won, right? Yeah, pretty easy. Okay. Normalcy bias. We have look, a lot of you guys like the core for the discipline and routine. You have a hard time planning for or reacting to disasters that haven't happened yet. COVID, right? Anybody seen the Bill Gates video that's like 5 years ago? It's a TED Talk. And he's like, hey, the next thing that's going to ruin us is a disease. Okay? And he did it in like 2015 or 16. And he nailed it. Everything he said in that video happened. Okay? Why weren't there enough lifeboats on the Titanic?
Because they thought the Titanic was unsinkable.
Unsinkable. Where's that son of a bitch right now?
Somewhere.
Bottom of the ocean, isn't it? Okay? That's because we think that it won't happen. All right? Anybody from Houston? Okay? Are those hurricanes going to come? Eventually, right? But a lot of people are like, no, I'm good. There was a video, was it Harvey? This dude just turned and drove into the water. It was amazing. And he was like middle-aged. I don't know if he was high or what. He just drove in the water and he got out of his car because a news camera was there talking, and it's all on tape. And the commentator just like, what is happening? Gets him out of the car, and the dude just looks dazed out of his mind. Like he had no idea there'd be water in the road. Okay? It rained 6 feet, but he was surprised. Okay?
It amazes me that between Ike, Harvey, and then all the other mini hurricanes that we got hit with, that people used to think hurricanes won't come.
Yeah, and you know where all the hospital, the whole medical center in Houston?
Yeah.
There's like 6 hospitals or whatever.
Yep.
You know where all their generators and stuff were? In the basement. Right. They learned that the hard way, right? Maybe we should put those above the water. Okay. It leads to underestimating the odds of a worst-case scenario and minimize potential impact. Again, I think I referenced Jocko Willink. He'll talk about this stuff with planning. Okay. And he's like, what happens if this goes wrong? And they were like, no, we're good. That won't happen. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. So you got to take those things into consideration. Read that top one. Is that true? Statistically, that's impossible. 93% of Americans are above average drivers. You already brought it up, right? Almost got hit. Okay, terrible drivers. Yes. How many of you are driving and you say horrible things to other cars?
Over there.
Things you would never say to a person's face. You're just screaming them in your car, right?
Only if I get really pissed off.
Yeah, okay, maybe if you really didn't like them. But like if your mom heard you say some of those things to another human being, she would beat your ass, right? Or just be really disappointed. Okay? No, we can't all be above average, right? Statistically, it's impossible, but we think we're good, right? Entrepreneurs, again, all of them think they're going to make it. I teach a business ventures class. Out of about 10,000 startups, about 80 will make it to be successful. About 12 will be Amazon or a Tesla, right? Out of 10,000. It's really hard, okay? But when you're in a good mood, you think good things will happen, right? When you're in a bad mood, you're like, this sucks, everything bad is going to happen, okay? In either case, your emotions are what make you irrational, right? If you're in a bad mood, sometimes you're just being a jerk, right? Why? It's not anybody else's fault. You ever take stuff out on people? You know who you take stuff out on? Your parents. You guys are still there. Wait till you have kids. I have a 12-year-old daughter right now. She's killing me, Jacqueline. She is killing me. It's like, where's my sweet little girl? She wants to rip my head off, okay? Because it's all hormonal and it is crazy, and I am terrified. She's like this tall. Your emotions will make you irrational, okay? You will make irrational decisions. Ostrich effect. We don't like bad news. In fact, we will go to great lengths to avoid bad news. Okay? It's just sticking your head in the sand. Outcome bias. Everybody loves a winner. What if they just got lucky? It happens. Okay? Johnny Manziel. We loved him for a minute, didn't we? Now we're like, yeah. Can't let Johnny keep sobering up for a few years. He'll be okay. Hopefully. Okay? We rarely, this is again important in the real world, you rarely question somebody who has a successful track record. Okay? But sometimes they just got lucky. Not a bad thing. Just be aware of it. Okay? Overconfidence. Success leads us to place too much faith in our own expertise. Okay. If you don't believe me. They did a study, a forecasting study on like all these different things. Real estate, gold, hurricanes, okay, all like what was going to happen to the price of gold, how many hurricanes we're going to have, when's the volcano going to erupt, okay, all these crazy different things. Like it was like 500 different topics, okay, and they took the experts and then they took a bunch of amateurs, broke them into two groups, said, okay, tell me what the price of gold is going to be, next year, and they go through all this study. How many hurricanes are we going to have, okay? How did the amateurs do compared to the experts? Better. Why? Huh?
They rely more on data than our experience.
Yes, they went and looked it up. They asked people. They sought out research. Okay, what do the experts do?
Just rely on you and their own.
Yeah, they're like, I know what's going to happen. No, they don't. Okay, so again, where you need to be aware, if you're really good at something, just be aware that it's okay to ask for help sometimes, right? We don't know it all, right? Abilene, okay? The Abilene paradox. We were talking about this before class. This might be the only one you remember the name. Okay? Consciously act against our own beliefs and wishes in order to preserve group harmony. A family in Texas, in the summer, decided to take the family vacation and go to Abilene. In the summer. What's in Abilene, William?
Nothing.
Hot, nothing, right? Why did they do that? Huh? No? Well, kind of. But why did they go, William?
No one wanted to oppose the opinion.
Because no one said no. They're like, hey, should we go to Abilene? Somebody's like, yeah, I guess so. And then they all just said yes. And it was horrible. They were like, this is the dumbest vacation we've ever done. Nobody wanted to disrupt the group. Nobody thought and said, why are we going to Abilene in the summer? Okay, there's nothing there. Right? That's what it is. Okay, yeah. Guys, okay, you ever seen lipstick on a girl's teeth?
Yeah.
Do you say anything?
Yep.
Good for you. Most people don't. You don't know what to do, right? You're just sitting there the whole time like, oh man, she's got lipstick. I want to tell her, but I'm not going to tell her. Okay, same thing. You ever had a booger hanging? See when you get to look in the mirror? You're like, man, I just talked to somebody for 5 minutes. Never said a word to me. Okay? We won't recognize the elephant in the room. We won't talk about the elephant in the room. Okay? Or we won't see what was probably a good idea of the family vacation and say, maybe we just shouldn't go to Abilene. Okay? All right, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're getting close. Oh, I just like this meme. I just like to make fun of the Kardashians whenever I can. Did somebody bring this up? Somebody in 281 brought this up. Individuals with a low level of knowledge in a particular subject think they have it figured out. They think they know it all, right? Similarly, if you have it down, you will question yourself, right? Nuclear engineering, you got it figured out? Nuclear engineering, that's right. Okay, you got it all figured out? No, but I bet you know a hell of a lot more than the rest of us. Okay? I hope so too, right? And keep us all alive, okay? This is really common. You ever seen somebody that thinks they know what the hell they're doing? Maybe in the Corps. And you're like, dude, they don't know what they're doing. Okay? That's exactly what this is. Okay? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Self-serving bias. Again, we talked about tests, right? Take a test, and you do poorly, whose fault is that?
Yours.
Professors. All right, good answer. But it's really your own fault, right? Somebody who missed class wrote in their paper, well, there's a whole bunch of variables. Sure, there are. Could you have managed those a little better? Yeah, you could have. Okay, probably. If you really have a professor who's not giving you information or is really confusing, could you go seek out help from them? Probably. If they still screw you, then yeah, okay. their fault. Self-serving bias. Status quo, again, same thing that some of you guys struggle with because you like routine. You tend to prefer things as they already are. Who has a hard time when something new comes up? You get a curveball thrown at you.
Initially, yes.
Initially, you don't like it, right? Caden, same? Yeah, don't like it if it's not planned out? Good, my engineer. Okay, there he is. I can't wait till you have kids, man. Kids are really hard. Call your parents and apologize. Just watch what happens. Call them, be like, hey, I bet I was probably kind of a punk or a turd at some point. You can call them. It's a little early. Oh, man. Okay, call them up and just say, hey, I'm sorry if I was challenging sometimes. Watch what happens. They'll be like, what'd you do? What do you want? Just call. Just call them, right? Tell them I'm sorry, all right?
I've already had that discussion.
What's that?
I've already had that discussion.
Good. At least you know. Were you ever a lifeguard? Kids were terrible, right? Oh, it's terrible. It's like babysitting. They run all the time. You're just yelling at kids all day long. I did it at a country club, and people would go play golf for 4 or 5 hours and leave their kids at the pool, right? But it was hilarious because they would go to the snack stand. Like 3-year-old who couldn't even read or write, but he knew he had to like scribble a signature, so he'd order food.
Smart kid.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I was impressed. I was like, hey, give me a hot dog or something. If there's too many choices, people won't decide. You will freeze up, okay? This leads to repeating mistakes. We got a few more, trying to get through them all. Sunk cost fallacy. We have a hard time cutting our losses. Has anybody bought a car on their own yet? Yeah? How'd it go?
It was confusing.
It was what?
It was pretty confusing because I've never done it before.
Confusing, okay?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad? Okay, good. What happened? And you're going to buy a house someday, right? If you haven't already, okay? You're going to buy a house or condo or whatever. And you're going to think, or a car or truck, right? And you're finally making money and you're like, I want this thing. And you're going to want it. And they know that, right? I bought a new truck this summer, okay? And, it's pandemic and all this stuff. And we did it all online. They were going to give me what I wanted for my trade-in. Everything was cool. And they threw another fee at me, threw another $1,000 at me. I was like, what is this for? He goes, well, it's got new tires and there's a diesel fee. I'm like, bro, the tires come with the truck. Like, you can't sell cars without the tires, right? And then there's not a diesel fee if it's, not a commercial truck, okay? And it really pissed me off. We had everything done, and they threw this at me. And my wife's like, you really want that truck? Just pay it. It's another $1,000. I was like, no, I'm not gonna. 25-year-old Dr. Payne, Mr. Payne, would have been like, okay, yeah, I really want that truck. And I was like, no, screw you guys. And I actually dropped the line. I was like, so this is how you treat a veteran, huh? They really made me mad, okay? And you know what? I found a better truck. I got a better deal, and it all worked out. But you're gonna want that thing so bad that you don't know how to cut your losses. You're gonna make an irrational decision. If you 100% walk away, they will come crawling back to you. Okay, we'll do it, okay? So just know that. But it's not just with money, okay? You can burn up time, you can burn up political capital, reputation that you've built up. Sometimes you have to cut your losses. That's hard to do. Group of biases connected to our desire for instant gratification. Okay, this same thing with choosing the money, right? We often don't think about the long term, especially where you guys are right now. Everything is like, get through the day, get through the week, get through the semester, right? You're trying to graduate and get out of here. Consider the long-term effect. Most of us in general don't do that. We want the short-term instant gratification. Does this bother you? Yes! Okay, this is the first time I've done it this way. I just wanted to see. I threw it off for conformity, okay? Especially you guys, right? Regimented, routine, everything. Our desire for conformity is so powerful it distorts our view of reality at the most basic level. They did a study, and they took a group of people like you, put you in a room, and they showed you a flashcard, and one line is clearly longer than the other lines. And then they would ask you which line was the longest. What they did was plant actors. They put people that were not part of the study, they were actors, and they were saying which line was longer, and it was the wrong line. What did the people in the study do?
They followed suit.
They agreed. They saw and knew what was right. But William was over here, and he's like, no, it's the other line. I was like, oh, wow, William's probably right, or I don't want to upset the group. People do this 100%, right? Don't do that. Don't give in, okay? If you know you're right. Unless it's your spouse, then you're wrong. Okay?
Now Dr. Payne,
Good for you. Perfect. Okay. Good stuff. Questions? We learn anything today? What did we learn?
About all the different biases that we all have at some point.
Did any of you see yourselves in some of those?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Try to pay attention to it. The reason I did this today, and again it was a review if you had me before, is this week the discussion posts are already up. You're going to read the introduction and the first chapter to the willpower instinct. Okay? Does everybody have it? Does anybody not have it? Speak now.
Should the introduction?
The introduction and the first paragraph. It's in eCampus right now. If you don't have it yet, chapters 1 and 2 are on the A&M library database, but only those chapters. We did that just to give you a little time to get it. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask this of you. Please digest the information. This is not a read to take a test, right? It's related to the assignment, and read it sooner rather than later, okay? So it'll help you with the assignment because I need you to take note of the decisions you make during a day, right? Make notes throughout the day of decisions that you make, okay? But so go read that first and see the assignment, okay? It's on eCampus, due Monday, right? But actually digest what's in the book. Don't just burn through it because you have to read it. Try to see what it's telling you. Can we do that? Promise? I don't believe some of you, only because it's new information. Cool. Questions about any of that? Yes, sir.
So, based off the slides.
Yep.
So earlier you said, don't look at past businesses to help run yours,
The patterns.
the pattern.
Patterns. So sometimes you will see patterns and you'll think, okay, say you want to open a wine bar, whatever, and you'll be like, oh, 12 wine bars have failed in Bryan College Station. They didn't make it. I can figure out why. So you'll see that they failed and you'll be like, oh, I know the secret to make it work. Or you'll look at the patterns and say, here's what they're missing. So here's some successful wine bars. I can make it better. So you'll just look for patterns and they're not always there. Sometimes it's just luck. Sometimes it's location, right? Or whether people liked it or your servers or whatever, okay? But we tend to look for patterns that aren't always there. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Other questions? It's a good question. Good? All right. Go be awesome. Have a great week.